is an interdependency between the US and Canada. But when we hear 25% tariffs, it's an existential threat.
At the end of World War II, the US controlled nearly half of the world's manufacturing. Today, that number has dropped to just 16%. This dramatic shift is a wake-up call for America's global influence. Let's dive into how Donald Trump's current term is setting the stage for worldwide chaos. When you think about global dominance, the US used to be the center of it all, militarily, economically, and diplomatically. For decades, the world looked to Washington, D.C. for leadership. If there was a problem anywhere in the world, the US was often the one that stepped in to offer solutions, whether it was brokering peace deals in the Middle East or maintaining a strong military presence to keep the peace in the Asia-Pacific region. This era of American influence has been slowly eroding, but could 2025 be the year when the US falls from its pedestal? With China and Russia rising to challenge America's influence and a chaotic leadership at home, America's ability to steer the ship of global diplomacy is being put to the test. In recent years, the US has struggled to maintain its dominant influence on global events. The Middle East, once an area where America held strong sway, is now a prime example. Historically, the US would step in to mediate conflicts like those between Israel and Arab nations, or intervene in crises like Iraq or Syria. But today, the US is no longer the central player in the region. Other powers are stepping up, and the perception of America as a global peacekeeper is fading. The vacuum left by the US is being filled by regional powers with different agendas, leaving the future of American foreign policy uncertain. The region's strategic importance to the US has weakened, and even its closest allies are left questioning what comes next. On the global stage, America's position isn't just weakening in the Middle East. Look at the Asia-Pacific region, where the US once held unparalleled influence. The Asia-Pacific used to be a zone where America's military presence, combined with trade agreements, kept China in check and ensured a balance of power. That's all changing. China's rise has become one of the most significant shifts in modern geopolitics. The country is investing heavily in its military and expanding its reach through initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative. As China continues to grow economically and politically, it's becoming clear that the US can't keep its iron grip on the region anymore. In fact, the balance of power is slowly tilting away from the US and toward China. The US still has significant alliances in the region, but China's aggressive expansion is shifting the dynamic. It's a game changer for global politics. With the US distracted by internal issues, is it really prepared to counter this rise? The shift in influence is becoming more visible with each passing year. And then, there's the financial aspect. America's economic dominance has been a cornerstone of its global leadership. For decades, the US was the world's economic powerhouse, producing goods, leading technological innovation, and dominating financial markets. At the close of World War II, the US controlled nearly half of the world's manufacturing capacity. The country could dictate terms to other nations because of its economic strength. But now, that's no longer the case. The US now controls just 16% of global manufacturing. This may sound like a small percentage, but it's a dramatic shift when you think about how much the US used to lead in this space. The decline in manufacturing capacity means the US can't just dictate the terms of global trade anymore. Its ability to influence other nations economically has severely weakened. In fact, the US economy is in a fragile position right now. The national debt has reached over $36 trillion and continues to grow. Neither political party seems particularly interested in addressing it. What's more concerning is that the US doesn't seem to have a coherent plan for managing its economic future. With the country's debt ballooning every year, the government is increasingly forced to allocate funds just to service the interest on that debt, rather than investing in crucial areas like infrastructure, healthcare, or defense. This leaves America in a position where it has to make difficult decisions about where to spend its limited resources. The internal economic instability, combined with external pressures like trade wars and competition from China, creates a perfect storm for future financial crises. The longer this goes unchecked, the more America's global standing will be compromised. Now let's turn to Trump's leadership, which has only complicated these matters. His administration's foreign policies have often seemed erratic and unpredictable. Take, for example, his stance on tariffs. The decision to impose tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico sent shockwaves through global markets. And here's the kicker. These tariffs don't just hurt the countries being targeted, they end up hurting American corporations too. The US has extensive trade relationships with both Canada and Mexico. Many American companies operate factories in these countries to take advantage of lower labor costs. But when tariffs go up, production costs rise, which means American companies will see their profits shrink, prices for consumers will increase, and jobs could be lost. It's a lose-lose situation for everyone involved. Trump's trade wars with Canada and Mexico could lead to a significant economic downturn, both in the US and in its closest neighbors. But Trump, in his own unpredictable way, seems undeterred. How many people are actually feeling the impact of these tariffs right now? And how much longer can the US afford to make decisions that could harm its own economy? But wait, there's more to consider. The US might be in danger of losing access to critical resources that are key to staying ahead in technology. Canada, for example, holds vast reserves of the minerals and metals needed to build everything from smartphones to electric vehicles and AI systems. But Trump's tariffs on Canada have made it harder for American companies to access these crucial resources. The US is playing a dangerous game here, antagonizing one of its closest allies. As the trade relationship with Canada becomes more strained, the US could find itself at a disadvantage in securing the resources needed for future technological development, potentially leading to a collapse in the broader tech industry that relies on these essential resources. We can't ignore the bigger picture either. America's relationships with its global allies. With China and other emerging powers asserting themselves on the world stage, the US can no longer afford to alienate its allies. But that's exactly what's happening. Europe, for instance, is already feeling the effects of Trump's tariffs, and as tensions rise, the possibility of a fractured global order becomes more likely. The US might have been the world's leader for decades, but now that position is in jeopardy. If America continues down this protectionist path, the world could slip into even more chaos. A world without a clear global leader. It's something that we've never had to face before. So, where does that leave us? The decline of America's power on the world stage is not inevitable, but it's certainly a possibility. The combination of internal dysfunction, unpredictable leadership, trade wars, and technological competition is weakening the US's ability to maintain its global dominance. If this trend continues, what does the future hold for America and for the world? Can America find its way back to a position of leadership? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a new, more chaotic era? If you found this video insightful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more on these global developments. The future is unfolding before us, and we'll be here to cover every step of the way. Stay tuned.